Top of the morning, everyone. Welcome to our first House Minerals Committee meeting for the 2026 session. Appreciate everyone that's here this morning. I know there's food down the hall, so you're sacrificing to be here with us, and I'm grateful for that. Members, thank you for being here. We've got a lot to do in a short amount of time, not only today, but throughout this budget session. I'd like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones. And let's hang on to the saddle horn and get started here. Libby, would you call the roll, please?
Representative Campbell.
Excused.
Representative Knapp. Here. Representative Larson.
Here.
Representative Lawley.
Here.
Representative Riggins.
Here.
Representative Schmid.
Here.
Representative Tarver.
Here.
Representative Weber.
Here.
Chairman Heiner.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Libby. Members of the committee, we have some people online that have time constraints because of employment. So absent any objection, I will move HB 22 to number 2 on the list. Do I have any objection to doing that? Okay. Thank you very much. We will begin with House Bill 5, Oil and Gas Bonding Pool Investment and Earnings. Tom, do you want to? Now, members of the committee and public, we have heard a lot of testimony about most of these bills during the interim. So we don't want to rehash everything that we've heard before, but if there's anything new that you feel like the committee needs to hear before we work on these bills, please let us know. But we don't want to spend time going over same things that we've already heard. So
Chairman,
we've already passed a lot of hurdles to get here.
I'm sorry to interrupt,
Mr.
Chairman.
Martin.
If you would ask the panel and the panelists to get as close to the mic as they can, because we're having troubles
Okay.
hearing out here.
Tom, like a rock star.
Thank
Put it
you.
right up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
My name is Tom Kropatch. I'm the Oil and Gas Supervisor for the Oil and Gas Commission. This bill was very simple, and I'll just spend a few seconds to describe what it does. If you recall, the last interim session, you all passed the Oil and Gas Bonding Pool bill that is designed to help operators secure bonding in the state. That was a result of the BLM's changes to their bonding requirements. In drafting that bill, we overlooked the fact that the investment earnings in the pool would not stay in the pool unless that language in that statute actually said that it had to stay within the pool. Otherwise, the investment earnings go back to the general fund. So what this bill does is just state that the bonding pool, the money in the bonding pool that's invested by the state treasurer's office, those earnings remain in the pool so that the pool will help grow and become eventually in the distant future a self-bonding pool that has enough money to cover the bonds for the industry in the state. And that's simply what this bill does, just to make sure that those earnings stay in the pool.
Thank you, Mr. Kropatch. Question?
Thank you, Mr. Kropatch, for being here. Could you give us a kind of an update on where we are since we passed that bill? I know you guys have been working diligently on that, but just for the record, kind of an update on where we are and what are the next steps. And again, appreciate you and all that you guys do.
Thank you, Representative. And also how much interest we've had in that bonding pool, how it's going.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley, the statutes became effective July 1st. We immediately started rulemaking, and the commission rules became final in September of 25, so in the fall. Then we wrote the request for proposals. As you recall, the pool requested that the commission contract with a third party to operate the bonding pool. So that closed, the RFP closed in mid-January. We've reviewed those. We're selected the party that we will award that RFP to. We've done the interviews, we've done all that process. So we're ready to award the RFP. Probably will be this week, and then we'll start the contracting process. We do have a few things that we had questions on in their RFP about some of the fees and collateral requirements. and how that would work with operators. And so they're willing to negotiate those and see if we can figure out how to lower them as much as possible. And they are low already from what they propose, but we want this to be affordable and efficient for all the operators, as many as we can. So we're going to try to figure out how we can utilize, if there's ways we can utilize the state's bonding pool to help reduce those costs even further. So that's where we're at. We expect to have that done and contract in place in the next 30 to 45 days, depending on how those negotiations go. And we'll be up and running. The BLM did postpone the bonding requirements for most operators, so we have another year till June of 27 to get those in place. So that's helpful, but we still want to get this process going because, as you know, it works for all operators and all bonding, not just the BLM bonding. So state bonding and Oil and Gas Commission bonding as well. So we're moving forward, and we think we'll have that in place here shortly. And there is a significant interest. We do receive phone calls, and especially from some of the smaller operators just wanting updates on where they're at and when it's going to be effective. So we think it'll be a good program.
Follow up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a comment again. I just appreciate the work you guys have done. I was very honored to be on the work group for this bill. I think it's going to be so important for Wyoming, but we wouldn't be able to do it without what you do at the Oil and Gas Commission, the expertise you already had in place and the work you've done. And I just want to mention that and thank you for that. We can write all the things, but we do depend on you guys to implement, and you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. My question is on the pool. Is there a limit that we're trying to get to, or an amount that once we reach it, we would stop collecting money for this, or will it be going on forever and ever? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Weber, we would at some point be able to reach a level where we would not need to collect additional fees or anything from operators. You know, that's probably out several decades, depending on, obviously depends on participation from the operators. You know, the more operators that participate, there is a mill levy that is assessed, so that'll help grow the fund and also the investment earnings. So it depends on a lot of factors in there, but at some point we think we could get to a level of full self-bonding where operators could just participate in the program and have not have to post additional fees or bonds.
Follow up? Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Kropatch. Appreciate that. Any other testimony? Mr. Obermuller, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I was warned of your 5-minute warning. So Pete Obermuller with the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. I just want to say that we support it and really grateful to Supervisor Kropatch and his team for working so diligently all year. Happy to answer questions about any of it if you would like.
And Mr. Obermuller, thank you for your support. I think we have a very easy bill here. I hate to say that because that usually is a doom of death when you say it's an easy bill, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Committee.
Any questions for Mr. Obermuller? Thank you. Appreciate all that your organization does. Any other testimony on this bill, bonding? Any online, Libby? All right. We'll close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure? Move the bill. Moved by Representative Lawley, seconded by Representative Weber. Any comments? Any discussion? Question being called. We are voting on House Bill 5, Oil and Gas Bonding Pool Investment and Earnings. Mr. Knotts, would you call the roll?
Representative Campbell. Aye. Representative Knapp.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Riggins.
Aye.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Weber.
Aye.
Chairman Heiner.
Aye.
9-0. This is a due pass.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Knotts. Representative Lawley has volunteered to carry this bill on the floor. Thank you very much for volunteering. Okay, our next bill up is House Bill 22, and I'll turn it over to the Vice Chair.
Representative Heiner, would you like to present this bill to us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to see you today. Thank you for this honor. Members of the, like a rock star, right? It's a pleasure to be in front of this committee. What a fine looking committee it is from this view. So just as a little bit of background, remember the self-proclaimed super mayor from Illinois, Tiffany Henyard? She was elected to be mayor of this small village. It's called a village. And she immediately began spending a lot of money. She raised her wages up to over $360,000 a year, spent a lot of money on the town credit card for stylist, personal security, and trips to some expensive places. And the people were outraged. The town halls became very contentious, but there's nothing they could do until she was finally up for re-election, and she lost by an overwhelming amount. I'm not saying that's happening in Wyoming, but we do have some issues in Wyoming. And what the problem is when the Constitution was written and these original statutes were put in place, most of our towns had a commission form of government. It was only about 100 years ago in the 1920s when Galveston had a hurricane down there and they transitioned to a mayor and town council, and that went like wildfire throughout the whole country, that everybody went to mayors and town councils. And here in Wyoming, that's all of our municipalities and cities have town councils and mayors that have elected government. So if there's an issue with any of these elected, there's nothing they can do to recall those, because it's only in the part of the statutes for commission style of government. So, Mr. Chairman, what this does is it extracts that that statute from that section of the Green Books and puts it in section 15-11 to make it available for all municipal officers. So, going to the bill, it's an act relating to cities and towns only. It doesn't apply to county commissioners. It doesn't apply to other elected officials, because they have ways to recall other elected officials. This is specifically for cities and towns. And on page 2, you'll see that it requires 25% of the registered electors in that town or municipality to sign a petition. On line 6, it has to contain a general statement why they are seeking to remove that elected official. Line 20, it says within 10 days of filing the petition, the clerk shall determine if all the requisite number of qualified electors have signed it to get 25%. On page 3, line 13, the governor body, once that is all completed, they will fix a date for holding the election, not less than 30 days and not more than 40 days from the date of the certification. And on line 18, they'll publish notice so everyone's aware of that special election. And line 22 and 23, the person that's sought to be removed may be a candidate himself. If that individual does not want to be a candidate, they have to, on page 4, top line, it says that individual has to actually put it forth in writing they don't want to be a candidate. So they're by default, they automatically become a candidate in that election. So that's the bill. We have some good amendments that are going to come forth that we'd like to discuss, but I stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Scott. Is there any questions? JT, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Representative Heiner, thank you for bringing this bill. Just want to clarify, because it's not, the definition isn't listed in the bill. So qualified elector, does that mean registered voter, or is that somebody living within the district who is eligible to be a voter.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, it means a qualified elector would be somebody who's registered to vote. And that's defined in other places in the statute.
JR, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Heiner. I was wondering about the timeframe. What if this is 3 months before the regular election? I mean, is there any thoughts about putting a limitation on that par how far, when it's already going to be settled and you go through this twice, and unless it's a really, really serious aggression rather than just general year-long policy disagreements?
Representative.
Chairman, Representative Riggins, spoiler alert for next individual is going to come up and testify. One of the amendments we're going to propose is that this recall election cannot happen in the first 9 months of someone's service in office. So if there's some retaliation or someone doesn't like them, they can't immediately do a recall. So they got to have some time in their position before a recall can be allowed. And only one recall election can be held for the term of office. So you can't do it repeatedly over and over again. You get one shot at the one bite of the apple, and that's it.
Follow up? Nope. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Chairman Heiner, again, thank you for the bill. I sat down with my mayor and she had similar concerns, but on the other end. So what if it's just 3 months from an election and someone's trying to get someone out more quickly, or 4 months from an election, and the cost of that, of doing that right before there's going to be that mayor is up for reelection? Is there anything in the bill that prevents that?
Representative.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lovely, no, there's nothing that prevents that. The only thing that would deter that would be the requirement of having 25% of the electors sign that. So it's not one individual trying to force this through. It has to be quite 25% of the people.
Follow up?
Again, would you have any objections to some kind of limitation to save money so that we're not forced to have, even with 25 people, get to have an election within 2 months of an upcoming general election for that position?
Representative.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley, I have no qualm with doing something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Whether it's 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months, that's up to the committee to decide.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, thank you, Scott, for your testimony. That
All
was
right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
fantastic. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this bill?
I don't want to take credit for what.
Good morning. Please state your name and let us hear it.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Co-Chairman, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Ashley Harpstreet. I'm the Executive Director for Wyoming Association of Municipalities. WAM represents all 99 cities and towns and serves 68% of the residents that live within the state of Wyoming, and 100% of all residents, visitors, businesses, and everybody who crosses over our main streets. We feel that this bill is very important, and we have been trying to work with the sponsor of this bill, but we do think it does need some amendments. I hope you can bear with me as we walk through some of our amendments. They're conceptual in nature. I was hoping to have them all pretty for LSO, but we were still kind of fiddling with things. So I'm hoping we can work through this as we go through this great legislative process. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, if I could go through the bill.
Please.
Okay, so conceptually, what we just already brought up, so it's not retaliatory in nature, and I have with me my good friend over here that is our clerk for Laramie County that can talk about the election process. So we can be kind to and efficient with the taxpayer dollars with elections, and looking at potentially moving the timeline where you could not call the recall till 9 months after someone serves. So it's not retaliatory when we let the dust settle after elections, right? And then I would propose like a 6 to 9 months before a general election if we're about to go back to the ballot box. So I don't know, LSO, if that makes sense somewhere right in the beginning on line 1, line 13, where it says any municipal officer elected under this article may be removed at any time instead of maybe something like after 9 months and or 9 months before an election. Okay. Mr. Chairman, any questions on that or? Okay.
No.
Okay. And then on page 2, one thing you'll hear testimony from several of my members on is the 25% of all registered electors. We were hoping that you could say on line 1, the petition shall be signed by at least 40% of all registered electors. And then on line 3, insert who were entitled to vote for. So I think it's really important we capture the voters that are within the district or ward, right? So for example, in Cheyenne, the mayor is at large, so he would need to get 40% of the registered voters that, like, so I'm in the county, I can't vote for him, but those that are at large within his district, if it's a ward, then in Cheyenne, you'd only get 40% within the ward to remove their representation. Does that make sense? Okay. So line 3, insert who were entitled to vote for and demanding, and then strike an election of a successor and insert the removal. So it'd be the petition shall be signed by at least 40% of all the registered electors who were entitled to vote for and demanding the removal of the person sought to be removed. Is everybody following me? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your grace here. Okay. And then on page 3, this is where I'm going to call on my mayor and president of our board, Mayor Matt Murdock. We are looking at page 3, line 16, and we would like to insert the language, the ballot shall present the question of whether the officer shall be removed from office. And then basically we strike from line 18 till the end of the bill, leave the last page, and we want to insert language that deals with how we recall and ballot on this. So the idea is, are you following me here? Okay, okay. Is, yeah, okay. I'm following still, right? Did I miss something?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, yep. So if the petition is sufficient, the clerk shall submit it to the governing body without delay. The governing body shall then fix a date for holding a recall election not less than 30 days and not more than 40 days from the date of the clerk's certificate of sufficiency. The ballot shall present the question of whether the officer shall be removed from office. And then it would be 9, a recall petition shall not be filed against an officer until the officer was served at least 9 months of the term for which the officer was elected. So that's another place to deal with the 9 months, or 9 months before another election. No more than 1 recall election may be held against the same officer during the same term of office, so they get 1 bite of the apple. And then finally, our last language would be if a majority of votes cast favor removal, the officer is removed from office and the office shall be deemed vacant. The vacancy shall be filled in accordance with Wyoming Statute 15-4-101 through 15-4-103 and in any applicable provisions of law governing vacancies for that office. This method of removal is in addition to any other methods provided by law. So basically, we understand the bringer of the bill's idea to put everything on one ballot, but we already have a statute in place to deal with vacancies. So we'd like to use that process that's already in place. I hope that was clear as mud.
Yeah, certainly was. I'm not even gonna try to tackle that one. So is there any questions from the committee on this? This looks like some major amending, and if we like the bill, we can certainly bring these amendments forward later. I'm not even, Mark, sorry. I'm gonna make it easier on you today. I don't have a problem with your amendments, but I don't think right now is the time to to put these in, but I think we can get them put in if the committee likes this bill. Does that sound good? Questions? Representative Bali?
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I do think we need to kind of vote on the conceptual amendments so that we clear on, and maybe have them run through them again. I appreciate that you provided some good wording, some places, and some, it was more conceptual, other places, but kind of just walk through generally so we can, the committee can kind of understand what they're voting on. And then I think, our good chairman could work with them to kind of finalize that then when it comes to the floor. But I think we probably would need a vote on the conceptual amendments. Yeah, so in response to what you said.
All right, sounds wonderful. Representative Bali?
And I agree, we should work the bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley too, I think there's one other process that needs to be addressed is that a lot of municipalities don't do their own elections and we rely heavily on our friends at the county for efficiency and good stewards and use of the taxpayer dollars. So those are kind of the conceptual ideas I had, and I can break those down again if and can stay here. But I think it's important that you hear from our clerk.
Let's move on with more testimony, please. No, I'm interested, but I don't know if we have the time to do what you're wanting to do there. Please, ma'am, can you provide more info?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Deborah Lee, and I'm the Laramie County Clerk, and I'm representing the County Clerks Association this morning. Municipal elections in Wyoming are administered by town clerks or by county clerks. Those administered by town clerks operate under their charter ordinances, while those administered by county clerks are governed under the election code. So in order to harmonize timelines and provisions in the bill with the election code, we request that this bill be referred to an interim study. Our association has previously had discussions with the Wyoming Association of Municipalities on some other election reforms that could be done for municipal elections. And there, as you've seen, there are several loose ends in this bill that may conflict with the election code and complicate the administration of elections. The election code does have some good language also related to the petition process that could be utilized here. And town clerks, I'll point out, they do not have access to the voter registration system and therefore would have no way of reviewing a petition. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Wonderful. Any questions? JT, please. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you for being here, Deborah. What are your thoughts about the suggested amendment to tie in the vacancy code that's in law already to this bill? Does that help it for you guys, or does that complicate it?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I do think it's important to tie in the vacancy.
Any further questions? Thank you. Anyone else like to testify?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman. We are, as Ashley stated, we are in a monitor position on this, but I think with these amendments, WAM would support this bill. I do want to specify that with the current statutory vacancy language, if that's not included, then this becomes some sort of it could become a contest outside of a normal election, like Bob just didn't like Jack, and so we got a recall vote and Bob runs against Jack and it becomes a whole different election. So I think the process is remove Jack and then we follow the vacancy rules to get, and if Bob gets in, great, but we don't let Bob just call us and run against Jack. Otherwise, it could become really competitive and it just turns into the wrong model of democracy that we have. So that would be my one comment and everything else that we discussed already.
Thank you. Questions? JT, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So I just want to confirm for conceptual amendments later on, we want to address the timeline issue at the beginning and at the end.
Yes.
We want to address the vacancy language, tie that in there.
Yes.
And then what was the third? The percentage. Okay.
The percentage, just because if you think about it, in a small community, I'll take Marbleton or Big Piney. I mean, that could be 8 voters that suddenly sign a petition on 25%, for example. The last town of Pinedale election, at a non-mayor election, we had 62 people vote. Now, your registered voters are obviously larger, but that petition could be a very small number in some small towns. And that could turn into a clan fight instead of an actual political issue. And I
Thank
think
you.
that was,
Any further questions?
and only
Thank you.
one recall per year and one bite at the apple, right?
Representative Lawley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I want to go back to you, Deborah, that about the situation you mentioned. As the more I think about it, the more concerned I'm becoming, because my district is made up of rural counties, and every city and town in my district operates with the counties conducting the election. So I guess I do want to make sure that we don't create ambiguities in those situations, and what responsibilities are being put on the counties in those situations. So any confusion in the statute that might exist is concerning to me. Do you feel that there's any way to kind of try to do that, in this setting, or is in your mind the interim the only way to sift through all that, which I know it can be complicated, the interplay between the municipal versus the county elections?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley, thank you for the question. I am concerned too about the differences between what the county clerks do for municipalities and then those running under charter ordinances. And it's a bit like pulling a string out of a sweater, before you know it, it can be unraveled. There are a lot of complexities and things that we may not be aware of. And that's why the County Clerks Association would recommend dealing with this in an interim study.
Just one more follow-up.
Thank Representative, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you for that answer. That was helpful. Who in your mind, like in a situation like I'm in, that all the municipalities really rely on the counties to do their elections and work, and they don't really do any of that independent, who would end up paying for this in the scenario like I'm in my district?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley, what happens is that the counties bill whichever political subdivision is on the county ballot. We do bill them for the cost of running their elections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Weber, please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Thank you, Deborah Lee, for being here. My question is, how many counties versus towns run their own elections? Like, how many towns run their own elections in Wyoming?
Mr.
Please.
Chairman, Representative Weber, I don't have that information statewide. Perhaps WAM may have it. I just know in Laramie
you don't have-
County, we have the city of Cheyenne and the town of Pine Bluffs. They are on the county ballot while Burns and Albin run their own elections.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
Do you have that information from WAM, who runs their own elections?
I know in Sublette County,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Yes, sir. You're good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley. I know, Weber, and I know in Sublette County, we run our own, because our election is in the month of May. So, in those instances, when it overlays oftentimes with the general election, I think county is usually picking that up. So those towns, and I don't know the exact number, I want to guess roughly a quarter at least probably are running their own. The rest are probably going along with the county. There's not a lot of towns that have a May election. There's more that tend to, it's all over the board, to be honest. I don't have that number, but there is a significant number.
Follow up.
Thank you. And this is for any of you that can answer. Is there probably when it comes to possibly a recall election, if it happened in August, we all have a primary and we all have a general. In your area in Sublette County, does your county clerk run the general election, right? So the general election isn't the question, it'd be the primary election, right?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Weber, Yes, the elections for both the primary, because as you know, municipalities are non-political, so we don't have primaries for municipal elections. So our elections would be in November in that instance, and both of those are maintained by the county.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to tackle this beast?
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
do have
ma'am.
a mayor online.
Okay. Anyone present? Let me rephrase that. Anyone present would like to testify? All right. Mark, do we have anyone ready? I mean, we got one ready or?
We're- The technology is working.
Okay.
We're trying to get her to the right spot here.
All right.
Here we go. Mayor, you should be able to testify.
My apologies. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please proceed.
All right. Thank you so much, Chairman, for your time. I'll be pretty brief. I know you guys are crunched for your availability. In 2019, the mayor of Mills informed our firefighters that the contract would not be renewed. They were given less than 3 weeks' notice. The city had no replacement plan in place. That decision left the city of Mills without fire EMS services. I stepped forward to advocate for our firefighters and our community. I asked our state representative at the time to reintroduce his recall bill. Initially, he agreed. After discussions with the mayor, he withdrew it, stating it was not ready. That deepened the frustrations of the residents who had already felt they had no meaningful recourse to recall him. Today, I testify before you as the mayor of that same city. I'm asking you to vote yes on this recall bill because the residents must have the ability to protect their community when an elected official is causing demonstrable harm. I do support the suggested amendments as proposed by Mrs. Harpstreet, and as well as the raising the 40% to the threshold. I think that would better reflect the level of original support for that elected official by the voters. But I do want to touch on the grace period. It would be my suggestion that we do a 12-month grace period before a recall is initiated. In my case, it took nearly 2 years to unwind the financial and operational damage from the previous mayor. Although I can't go into full detail regarding the financial and legal damage that occurred, we are still working through some of those legal challenges today. One of the things that was created just a few months before I took office was that I was prohibited for 13 months from firing any city employees. So a 12-month grace period would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, I would stand for any questions in respect for your time on the committee. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your testimony. Ma'am, would you introduce yourself?
Oh, my apologies. Mayor Juarez for the City of Mills.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else online?
We have no one else online for this bill.
All righty, I guess we will close public testimony. What would we like to do with the bill? Move the bill moved by JT, Representative Larson, seconded by Weber. Representative Weber seconded it. Do we have any talking points or would like to discuss the bill here a little bit? Representative Lawley, please.
Well, based on the situation in my district, I feel like that this really should maybe be moved to an interim topic. I think it's important topic. I think it's a good idea of the bill, but I think the details really matter. And honestly, for the smaller municipalities, especially, they matter. And the alignment of the municipal election code versus the county election code is really important because even though the county's doing it for them, they have to now adjust towards what the municipal election code will require in this kind of a situation. So there's a lot of complexities. And so I would like us to get it right. I'm not sure we can do that with the conceptual amendments that we already have coming in. And then that issue is still left out there about how do we solve that in this bill. And so I would just urge that we consider pushing it to the interim, work on it, get it out and get it passed next general session because it is important. But again, we're in the middle of this budget bill and with recalibration, all of it. I just feel like we're not there yet. It's just not quite ready. Anyway, that's just my view and partly, maybe uniquely so in terms of the district I come from, but still, I think whatever we do on important, if it's an important subject, it's just as important that we get it right. So.
Is that a motion, Representative Lawley?
I would like to make a motion to table.
Motion to table. And do we have a second? We don't have a second. So do we have Representative Riggins, please? Oh, you second it? Okay, all right. It's been seconded for discussion. No discussion. So you second it? The motion then? Okay, motion's been seconded by Riggins. And I guess we vote. Voice vote. Anyone for tabling this bill? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone for not tabling it? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're gonna keep working the bill. Would anyone else like to propose any amendments? Talk about Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I'd like to propose a conceptual amendment, and LSO can help us out with language. But one thing, as I was thinking about this, I guess I'll move the amendment and then explain it. So the conceptual amendment would be, I move that we create a conceptual amendment that would make it to where there's only one recall per term per person who holds the seat. So if somebody else gets in there and they turn out to be bad too, they could do a recall on that person too. I was just thinking about that, and I don't think we should lock it into just one per term. It should be one per person per term. So,
Okay.
so that's my conceptual amendment, and yeah.
Perfect. Do we have a second on that? Second by Representative Weber. Discussion on the amendment.
Chairman,
Yeah, Mark, please.
conceptual amendment, you're wanting to input that where?
I'm not quite sure where that might fit, but I think we can just give LSO the flexibility to put it where it fits best.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you. The information that we were provided from WHAM on this back page on subtitle X says no more than one recall election may be held against the same officer during the same term of office. Just wondering, is that what you're alluding to? So maybe what we need to do, Mr. Vice Chair, is propose what we have here in front of us, but we need to vote on what he's proposing right now.
Representative Larson.
Mr. Chairman, if it's acceptable, I'll just amend my motion to match the language to what WHAM has provided.
Perfect.
Is that the whole amendment or just that one?
The whole amendment, Representative Larson, or just that portion?
I think just that portion, we can take up others as they come.
Okay. Mark, did you get that? Do we have a second? Yes, Representative Weber. Any discussion on the amendment? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against? Passes. Okay, do we have any further amendments? Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. And we have been handed a paper, I think LSO has it too, but that somewhat includes the amendments that were mentioned by WHAM. And I would like to move that. They're a little more than conceptual here. So that's why I'm referring to this.
Okay.
But they're basically the conceptual amendments for the record that were mentioned by Wham and the mayor that we had testify. So I move those in whole. And for the committee, that's this 2-page document.
And you move to replace the previous amendment with this.
Yes, well, in effect, I think it'd be easier for LSO and for clarity of the public that we just uh, re, what did you?
Replace.
Replace, there you go, the replace, it's early. Replace the previous amendment because it's included in here just to eliminate confusion. Yeah, and so, yes, that's also part of the motion, but that we in whole accept this as an amendment.
Fantastic. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Larson, Representative Larson. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same. Passes. Okay, back on the bill. What would we like to do with the bill? Any discussion on the bill? Do you guys want to further talk about the bill? Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Again, I appreciate these amendments. I think it makes the bill substantially better and addresses many of the concerns. But I still am concerned about the clerk's information she provided about the process and the potential conflicts between the two election processes of municipal and county. And so I'm still concerned about that issue and how are we going to work that out? But I just want to make that, and therefore I'm not going to be able to support the bill. Otherwise, I do support it, but that part is important for where I live. It's very important. And without it, it creates a lot of confusion about how they comply and whether they have fully complied if they have to do one of these recall elections. So again, for that reason, I'm going to be no on the bill, but I just wanted to explain that.
Thank you, Representative. Any further discussion? Representative Larson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the discussions we had was also addressing the towards the end of the term, that timeline. And I don't, from what I can read in here, it doesn't address the end timeline. It only does the 9-month term, or the 9 months for that first 9 months. So I think we need to add some language at the end of that paragraph on this amendment that WHAM has provided, and a paragraph 4, or sorry, 9, I should say. And just add language at the very end that says, and not 6 months before the next election.
Mark, did you get that? Do we have a second?
Talk about it.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. Mr. Riggins seconds it, and discussion. Vera, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that 6-month period, is that going to be the time the 40 days have expired? That's in the formula. So I guess that's what I'm asking the panel here. They think on that. So if you have the recall, you collect your signatures, will they have 40 days, or what is the number on there? So.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The way this sentence reads, it says a recall petition shall not be filed. So I think that would be, that 6 months timeline would be when they go to file the paperwork for it.
Okay, Representative
Well,
Lawley.
I thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. I appreciate the question by Representative Riggins, because one of the points that my mayor made was that we need to make sure that this recall is before the filing period, that in May, right before if you're doing the right before an election, that it would be important that it be done before the May filing period for office.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Chairman, you were acting like you wanted to say something there a little bit ago. Okay. So we have an amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All against, same. That passes. Would there be any further amendments? All right. What do we want to make? Question being called. Can we roll call, please?
We're voting on House Bill 22 with amendments. Conceptual amendments. With amendments. Representative Campbell.
Aye.
Representative Knapp.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
No.
Representative Riggins.
Aye.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Weber.
Aye.
Chairman Heiner.
Aye.
8-1. So do pass with amendments.
All right. Thank you, committee. Appreciate that. We will move on now to House Bill 56. No, is that the next one in order? Yes, 56. Carbon capture mandate. Again, this is one that we heard a lot during the interims, and it was passed by majority in the House but failed in the Senate. So Representative Knapp, please.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This bill we've seen before, but I wanted to kind of summarize what it is that we're looking at. This was based off of HB 200 in the past, which was updated by Senate File 42, which basically put into place standards for low carbon energy. And at that time, we were looking at a very different situation. I would call it the woke yoke placed around our necks for energy. At that time, coal was in jeopardy and coal power plants were in jeopardy. And so I understand the intent of what was put into place before. But what's important in this repeal is it repeals the low carbon standard. That definition aimed at significant reductions for for carbon emissions. And we had an administration that basically had the thought process of net zero in our energy policy. That has changed. It has changed nationally, and it should change in Wyoming as well. The compliance deadline for this is 2033. It has the PSC looking at different reports that are required for power plants to come up with before retiring. That costs millions of dollars to do those reports. If it came to a pilot project, that would be hundreds of millions of dollars to do. And ultimately, if you put a carbon capture plant by a power plant, estimates were up to $500 million to $1 billion per power plant. That cost recovery would come in the form of rates to the end user. So while this may have been a bill for that time, I think it's time that we reflect what's happening in today's environment and repeal that low carbon standard. If you look at the bill itself, it still allows for the PSC to look at reliability for the grid, low cost, dependable energy in looking at retirements. So that doesn't change. Q45 tax credits don't change from the federal government. That still allows for that. And with a good amendment from Representative Larson, I believe that any power plant that has already, or power company that's already gone down this road, done their report, started to shift to an alternative, that amendment would allow for those to be grandfathered in. So I do believe it's time for us to release the yoke off of ourselves, self-imposed, and allow for energy to let the market decide what energy is best to use. And this, by the way, did force a lot of companies to look at an alternative for low carbon. Those alternatives were wind, solar, and nuclear into their portfolio. So it has unintended consequences. And I think if we peel back to low carbon, we'll get back on track. So thank you. I'll stand for questions.
All right. Thank you, Representative or Chairman Knapp. Appreciate that introduction and review. Any questions from the committee? Representative Riggins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Knapp. Now, this, people might be confused about, is this affecting emission controls, right? So federal, EPA, or even DEQ, and I don't believe that would have any impact on current air quality standards, because those are all still in place.
Representative Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, yes, and one important aspect that has also changed the environment is we have the Clean Air Act, which was approved by Congress. So that is law. Beyond that, the EPA as an agency took it upon itself to increase standards along the way. Those are being peeled back, where CO2 is not even looked at as a pollutant anymore, and that will come from this administration as well. So no, it would not affect anything with the Clean Air Act, but everything else that's gone beyond that unconstitutionally from an agency, it would not apply those standards.
Follow up? All right. Any other questions for Representative Knapp? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative Knapp. Yeah, I know you're not feeling well today, but thank you for being here. Okay, we'll open it up for public comment, public testimony. Anyone who'd like to come forward? Why don't we start with the governor's office? That's typically how we should do this. I apologize that I didn't recognize you here before. Mr. Luthi, thank you for being here. Thank you for representing the executive office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my name is Randall Luthi. I'm the policy director of Governor Gordon. And it's been my pleasure over the years to work closely with the Minerals Committee. Most of you are brand new, and I'm not sure any of you were here when HB 200 came through. Representative Knapp, I appreciate your efforts here. I truly do. I think we're much closer than to each other than what most people think. I just want to take a few minutes. You've seen the slide presentation, and you'll be pleased to know I shortened it by about half. And I don't plan to spend much time on it anyway. I believe one of you mentioned to me last night that you about had it memorized. So that makes it easy, right? Because you have seen it before. If I might start, Mr. Chairman, just a clarification. HB 200 only required regulated utilities to evaluate the use of carbon capture. It did not require them to evaluate the use of wind or solar. Many of them already had done that. Many of them still continue to do that. But this was related strictly to carbon capture. The original bill did actually have a level of CO2 that they had to look at in order to evaluate. That was changed by the legislature a few years later to match the 45Q requirements. 45Q is the regulation that sets out the ability to take tax credits for rather what you do with CO2. You have a percentage of CO2 you should capture, and then rather you use it for enhanced oil recovery, or if you use it for permanent storage, that's the rule that determines how much money you get. Fortunately, now those are now identical, so they no longer just favor storage. It also allows enhanced oil recovery, which, by the way, is storage. So with that, I start off always with just a synopsis, if you'll look at your presentation, of how important coal is to Wyoming. And that's what the first page is. We have 17 power plants producing. We're the nation's largest producer of coal. That'll give you an idea of how many tons are being produced. And I'll just jump right down to the last point. Wyoming produced 2.7 million tons in the first quarter of 2024. The good news is that's up again in 2025. But we're still far below those standards, or the amounts of coal that were produced at about 2005. That was about our height. I don't know if we'll reach that, but I think we should continue to try to. The next page is just a list of coal-fired power plants. The most recent data that I have and when they had put their closure dates up. The thing I would point out here is coal plants have not been closing, but they've been changing to natural gas. So again, just a point just to make. The next
So,
one,
Yes,
sir.
Mr. Luthi, sorry. This has not been updated with the recent closures of Naughton and some of these other plants that are no longer using coal. Is that correct?
No, I believe it identifies Naughton 1 and 2 as 2026 switching to gas.
Yes, and your coal usage still shows,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was later than I thought last night. Thank
Okay.
you for that
all
correction.
right,
Yep.
thank you.
It's hard to use coal. It's hard to, use a lot of coal if you switch to gas. You're absolutely correct. I touch on the Clean Power Plan. That's and what we call the endangerment finding. The Clean Air Act does remain in place. I believe it was passed in 1973. But at one time, just prior to 2009, I believe, EPA said, gave out a ruling, what they call the endangerment finding. And all of you know that now pretty well. But that was, they made the determination that under the Clean Air Act, they were able to regulate greenhouse gases. They were determined to be an endangerment to human health. The Supreme Court did uphold that finding, but that is the basis that the EPA uses in regulating CO2, methane on coal-fired power plants, gas-fired power plants, any other, as well as oil and gas activities as well. Biden administration tried to really ratchet those down. Supreme Court said, no, you've gone too far. Trump administration kept first Trump kept the same standards. And then, Obama was first. Biden came in with some of the most restrictive heavy rules that you've ever seen. It would have actually required companies to decide by 2030 whether to stay in the coal business or not. If they don't, you switch to gas. If you do change, you go to some form of carbon capture. And what I point out there is HB 200 was actually passed in 2020. So it was actually done before that Biden rule, because the Wyoming legislature has been concerned about CO2 and coal for a long, long time. But that's what came in. And it was actually the result of 2019 when our regulated utilities announced they were going to start closing coal-fired power plants. That is the pressure we were all facing. So that was actually which spurred to HB 200. The next one is just what the Trump administration has done in the last year. It's pretty amazing. And I'll jump right down to the very last one. Up until probably tomorrow, when they talked about repealing the endangerment finding, that was only dealing with tailpipe emissions or vehicles. It looks like, as far as I can tell, tomorrow's announcement will include coal-fired power plants and gas-fired plants. Now, I have not seen it in black and white, but that's what I'm hearing. Tomorrow's announcement may actually do
Mr.
that.
Luthi, next time up in your office, could you show me that crystal ball? That looks like an amazing,
It is.
amazing thing that you have up there.
Once in a while. Let's just hope I'm right, Mr. Chairman. So, yeah. The next slide is just to give you an idea of, if we look at building new power plants, they're just not cheap. I mean, if you look at a 400 megawatt coal-fired power plant, it's probably going to be or 700 watt, it's probably going to be in the $5 to $6 billion range. Gas-fired even would be in the 350 megawatt, would probably be in the $1 billion range. There's maybe a way that utilities have got to be able to find maybe another source of income other than just, selling electricity. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to look at CO2 as a marketable entity. And then, so again, that was a reason for HB 200. Uses of CO2, we think the best way to use it is for enhanced oil recovery. Just plain out. That's how we do. The federal rules do allow for long-term storage. There are companies that are doing that in Wyoming. But again, my personal opinion, I like enhanced oil recovery. So it could be CO2 could and should be a very marketable quantity. Sources of CO2 in Wyoming, ExxonMobil is the largest source right now in the LaBarge plant. There may be another source there in the near future. Lost Cabin does produce some CO2, but that's about it. Lon Whitman, a director of the Enhanced Oil Recovery Institute, has been before you, but he predicts we're going to need a lot more CO2. So the question I ask you all is, okay, where are we going to get it? The capturing it on power plants just might be a marketable solution to be able to find more of that CO2. Some companies are investing in direct air capture. Frankly, Mr. Chairman, Wyoming folks aren't excited about direct air capture. Just not. So, and that's fine. Other states might be, but it just seems to make more sense rather than pull it out of the air. It's a lot more economical to capture it on a coal-fired power plant or a gas-fired power plant. Just the SCR slide is in there only just to remind the legislature how long the legislature has been involved in CO2 research. And that's the Integrated Test Center in Gillette, where you actually have companies that come test CO2 capture methods on the Dry Fork power plant. HB 200 we pretty well covered. Again, it was never a mandate to install, it was a mandate to evaluate. Now, if a company decided that in their evaluation they needed to do feed studies, they could ask the PSC to recover the costs of those feed studies or a pilot project, but it was capped at 2%. And some companies have done that. None have, I think the closest company to coming to that 2%, I believe, is at 1.6%. Most have kept it under 1%. And again, it did allow that, but there was a cap. And then HB 200 also allowed companies to make this as part of their rate of return. So again, to make sure it was economical for them. Never did we take away the PSC's ability to determine a rate increase if it didn't make economic sense. That remains with them. Has it worked? And that goes to the next one. I would encourage you that it has. I mean, 2 of the large regulated utilities have now done that. They've looked at carbon capture. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. And Senate File 159 required companies to go through a process when they wanted to close a coal-fired power plant, again, back in ancient history now, 2019, they had to go through at least a process to determine if they could sell it. HB 200 is in that same idea. You at least had to look at carbon capture. So it may not, again, allowed them to do it. Both Pacific Core, Black Hills have instituted projects to look at carbon capture. Jim Bridger is looking at carbon capture on units 3 and 4. And they recently announced that carbon capture looks like it was going to be economical enough that they have put it as a preferred portfolio. What does that mean? Maybe nothing. But it might mean they can spread the cost of that throughout the system as opposed to just Wyoming consumers. So that study's underway. The study at Dave Johnston did not involve a rate increase. That's a pre-combustion methodology that they're looking at Dave Johnston. And that will be complete in another year or so. And then I think you're going to hear about Black Hills or Cheyenne Light Fuel that are now looking at a project that actually uses CO2, injects it into a mine, a coal seam, and what you get back is methane. Just a fascinating project. And I'll let them talk about it. That's a game changer that works. So HB 200, is it still necessary? I would still argue that it is, even though the administration's has changing directions. We've got to go through the lawsuits. But I do believe there are some things that I would recommend to you. Again, I'm always going to recommend that you just leave it alone. Don't repeal it. And I believe this is the 3rd time I've made this request to this committee, and I'm not sure I've swayed any of you. But I will remain consistent with my request for you. But if you do decide to move forward, well, the other reason I would say that why it still means something is more than half of the states that we send coal to have low carbon standards for their power plants. They're not federal standards, they're state standards. So that, but again, that ties back into Mr. Knapp's argument, should the market determine that? So, but it is a reason. We at least have them in an option, companies in an option where they can make that educated choice, okay? And finally, has it accomplished its purpose? Yes, I still tell you, I do believe you need more time. The governor also recommends you do not repeal it, but options, we're always willing to work with the legislature, right? So options to consider. Maybe a sunset date, which I'd originally recommended January 1, 2027. I understand this one of these projects actually would extend to 2028. I leave that to the committee. And then, or as I understand, there's an amendment to just exempt projects out, allowing them to finish. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that was much shorter than last time.
Yes, about
correct?
half the amount of time. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
And if you would, I beg your, I want to apologize and beg your indulgence. The switch of moving this bill further down has somewhat limited my time. And so after you're through with questions, if I could be excused, if that would be all
All
right.
right, that would be great. Any other questions for the good Chief Policy Director for the governor? Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Luthi. This is just a temporary reprieve we have administratively. This is all going to show up. So companies, large companies in the oil field and in gas and all they are still planning on addressing CO2 issues in the future. For example, the mega rule, that's still underway, and that hasn't even really took full effect yet. So that's still, and they're not going to be ignoring that. Even we might hear for a year or two, but that's not going to stay. So I share some of your concerns on that. The second thing, when you're talking about CO2 and how it's used, when they did equalize the payments per megaton, and the companies that had already signed on for permanent sequestration, and then they're competing against companies that still get the same amount per megaton, but also get to use CO2 for other purposes. So I guess how would the state, I know that's a private contractual arrangement, but it was also somewhat, now you're required. I mean, has there been any thoughts? I don't know if the federal rule is being changed, but seems like certainly is a negative for those companies that decided, oh, we're going to permanently sequester that, while other companies benefit being able to do both. Any comments on that?
Mr. Luthi?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Riggins, I can always take the, what I call the fifth on that one, is the 45Q is a federal rule. And so while we try to work with the federal government, that is eventually a federal decision on that. The only thing I would add is, again, Wyoming has been working in this process for a long time. Legislature a few years ago actually created a process for how, if you're going to do permanent storage, there's actually a method and a way to meet the state regulations. And eventually the legislature agreed the state would actually take over liability after 20 or 30 years. So again, there's a plan, but that's the state side.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up? Any other questions? Mr. Luthi, I remember in previous testimony when we've talked about this before, the recommendation the governor's office had to have a sunset in 2027, January. And apparently by your testimony today, you've seen the proposed amendments that Representative Larson is bringing forward. Is that the reason that you wanted to wait until January is to be able to allow these projects that are in the pipeline right now to finish up? Is there any any magical reason for 2027 January?
Mr. Chairman, 2027, I was actually looking at what I was hoping the federal government would do, and that would be far enough along to see where they were on the repeal of the endangerment finding. Again, tomorrow may be a big day, but it's still going to be a fight. And part of it was just to reach agreement with this committee, frankly. You know, that we can, a sunset now probably does make sense. I did add 2028 today because of this last project that I learned about regarding geocapture.
So am I correct to understand if the endangerment finding is repealed, then you're okay sunsetting HB 200?
Yes, sir,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman.
Any other questions? I know you're a very, very busy man, so thank you for being here, Mr. Luthi.
Mr. Chairman, again, I apologize, and I am never too busy to meet with minerals. And if there are other questions, I'm more than pleased to try and answer them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
Have a
all,
great day.
members. Yeah.
Any other public testimony? Mr. Lindholm, would you introduce yourself, please, and continue and proceed?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Tyler Lindholm. I'm the State Director of Americans for Prosperity here in the Cowboy State. And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, happy to endorse this legislation, even as it's currently written. Understand if you've got to amend to make the situation better for current operators. I did want to provide some historical context, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, because I was there in 2020 when this legislation passed. And I do have to say that I was a no vote on the final passage of that. And the reason wasn't because it was too terrible of an idea. Representative or Chairman Knapp touched on the fact that there was this woke yoke on the state of Wyoming, and things looked very different at that time. And there was some concern about what the state of Wyoming should be doing. The biggest concern at the time that was heard from industry was this is going to cost consumers, because of course it is. That's how business operates. When you have new regulations, you have to pass those on to your customers. And it was, and it has been. And over the last several years, we've looked at several pieces of legislation on repealing House Bill 200 and getting this out of the green books. This is the first time this legislation has actually been just a clean repeal without any kind of flowers attached to it. And that's why we're here standing in support of the legislation, Mr. Chairman, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lindholm. Questions? Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Now we're honored to have the Public Service Commission come forward. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. I'm Chris Petrie, Deputy Chairman of the Wyoming Public Service Commission, and with me is John Burbridge, our Chief Counsel. About 6 months ago, we filed our report that's due to the legislature every 2 years, beginning in 2023. So we filed one this summer, and I just direct you to the conclusion of that report. We went through much of what has already been discussed here by Mr. Luthi and others. We recommended continuing the efforts to establish and implement reliable, dispatchable, low carbon energy portfolio standards based on the progress accomplished to date, the anticipated need for reliable and dispatchable generation resources to serve growing demand, and the high probability of continued uncertainty surrounding state, regional, and federal energy policy developments. And although there have been, as has been pointed out, Representative Knapp and Mr. Luthi discussed, there have been developments that seem to take the pressure off, at least for now. We have come to view this as something of a hedge against those unpredictable pendulum swings in federal policy, and we would stand by that recommendation, and that was contained in our report. And we're certainly available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Petrie. Questions from the committee? Mr. Berber, I'm sorry,
Burbridge.
Burbridge. Any follow-up testimony?
Thank you, Chairman Heiner. No further comments.
Okay. So Representative Riggins, I can see you. got
Thank you,
something
Mr.
on your
Chairman.
mind.
Thank you, gentlemen. I guess I just want to affirm about the cost to the ratepayers, and have they been getting increases as a direct result of this?
Mr.
Action.
Chairman,
Mr.
Representative Riggins, there have been surcharges on customer bills for several years now. And those have ranged from 0 to, I think, a high of 1.4. I might have that not quite right, but it's in that neighborhood. And at this moment, the rates are 0.05% for Rocky Mountain Power and 1.4, maybe it's 1.43 for Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power. And that's designed in both cases to match or qualify for grant funding that they've received for in the Rocky Mountain Power case for a feed study, and Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power for a demonstration project. And so, yes, the total collected by those surcharges, I think, is right in the neighborhood of $5 million. So it certainly is not, this is not a free exercise. And we all knew that at the outset. These studies and analyses do cost money. The process costs money. And that's all brought to the commission for examination for reasonable and prudent spending in compliance with the law. So that, they're doing what's deemed necessary to comply, and that's been the cost so far. Not all of that 5 million has been spent so far. But Rocky Mountain Power got ahead on collecting the surcharge compared to their spending. So
Follow-up, Mr. Representative Riggins.
So as they repealed this, would they still be able to recover those costs? I'm guessing it'd be up to you, I suppose, or that's just what I'm wondering about.
Mr. Petrie.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Riggins, anything that's been expended by the utilities at the direction of the legislature and then the commission process, any reasonable expenditures, I believe that they would be legally entitled to recover that regardless.
All right.
I mean,
Just as a follow-up to that, Mr. Petrie, this $5 million that's been collected so far, is that from solely for the citizens of Wyoming, or has it been collected from outside of the state that are also part of Rocky Mountain Power and some of these utilities? Or is it solely Wyoming paying for this?
Chairman, that is a surcharge that has been applied only to Wyoming customer bills.
So Wyoming is footing the bill of HB 200, and if these plants are extending their life with CO2 capture, other states are not participating, or they will benefit, but they are not helping us pay for this at this time. Is that correct? We are paying, this $5 million is totally on the backs of the citizens of Wyoming.
Mr. Chairman, that 5 million, which I said has not all been expended as far as I know. So there's a balancing account, so it's accumulated a balance, and that's there, and it's available for their future plans or not, depending on how this all plays out. But yes, the short answer is yes. These efforts to explore the potential for economically capturing CO2 from coal-fired power plants is a Wyoming expense. And so the other states do not pay for that. I think it's pretty hard to tell how that all ultimately works out. For example, it does appear in the Rocky Mountain Power IRP, carbon capture, use and storage technology, and it could be in the future, although nobody has made any commitments to accept any responsibility for paying for it or even to accept the power. It could be that that necessity inspires others out of state to participate in paying for these
And
plants. In the event we got to the point where we're actually spending the large sums, like $500 million, for example, to retrofit a coal-fired power plant with a carbon capture facility, then that's very unlikely that could be done simply on Wyoming customers' tab. It's too much money.
And just as a follow-up to that, there are a couple of states, Washington and Oregon, that have mandates in the near future that they will no longer accept electricity that is generated from fossil fuels. So if we spend $1 billion for carbon capture and then have nowhere to go with the electricity because they refuse that electricity, that would possibly be totally upon the backs of the Wyoming citizens. Is that possible, Mr. Petrie?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to agree that that's possible, but it's not realistically possible because the economics would be so poor that wouldn't very likely be found to be a reasonable course of action by the utility, and so they wouldn't be able to get an approval to do it even if they really wanted to.
Okay, thank you. Representative Knapp first, and then we'll come back to you. Okay. Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to be clear, and maybe you can help clear it up, that it's not all this cost is not necessarily on the backs of citizens themselves. There's also businesses and industry that are help paying for this as well, because they are ratepayers as well for purchase of electricity.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Petrie.
Representative Larson, that's correct. It's all customers, and you're all, I believe, familiar with the really high rate of industrial service that Rocky Mountain Power, for example, supplies. So it's a very large part of their revenue, their sales.
Any follow-up? Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Petrie and
Members.
Mr. Burbridge. Good morning.
Good morning,
Mr. Bush, introduce your
Good
bill.
morning, Mr. Chairman. Oh, boy. Excuse me.
That chair does it to you. I know.
Yeah. Well, we live in a petri dish the past couple days, and apparently I have found the bug. David Bush with Black Hills Energy. Felt compelled to come up and talk since our project has been and our company has been discussed. So I will try to be brief because I know I sound terrible, and this is not what anybody wants to listen to. So we have a project with a company called Carbon Geocapture, and it's at our Neil Simpson complex outside of Gillette, our coal-fired unit up there. And joining me also is Jody Levin, who represents Carbon Geocapture. So the project is, as Mr. Luthi referenced, it's up for potential energy matching funds. There was a news article that some of you may have seen recently that was about $4.9 million that's going to be matched by us. So what we have with House Bill 200 is, you'll remember there's a up to a 2% surcharge that is possible under House Bill 200 for us to use to implement the bill. This was originally thought of as, hey, if we're going to have to bolt on carbon capture to a power plant, we have to have a way to recover those costs, as Representative Briggins was talking about. It was capped at 2%, which, as was also testified, if we're looking at $500 million to $1 billion, 2% of our Cheyenne customers, that's not going to help pay for that. We instead have looked at some other projects and have testified to this committee in the past about some of those projects. We are not bolting on any sort of carbon capture Petronova style thing. That's not economically feasible, as Commissioner Petrie also mentioned. But we do have this project with carbon geocapture, taking the flue gas off of the plant. We're putting it into class 2 wells in unminable coal seams outside of our power plant there in Gillette. And as Mr. Luthi mentioned as well, we're hopefully going to have the production of coal bed methane gas as a byproduct. Now, boy, this is terrible. I'm really sorry, Mr. Chairman. The way that we're doing this is through the House Bill 200 surcharge. We have a 1.43% surcharge on customer bills for here in Cheyenne. And as has been pointed out, that's all customers, including the data centers. The interesting part about this is the technology could be a real game changer for clean energy from coal. As many of you know and has been talked about, there's a lot of technology data centers that are looking at energy and hyperscaling and expansion, but they want clean energy. A lot of that in the years past has been natural or solar and wind, now nuclear, some natural gas. But if there's a way that we can find coal and use that for powering some of these data centers in a clean way, that could potentially be a huge game changer, especially for us here in Cheyenne with the amount of data centers that we have coming in. So this is something we're looking at. Our surcharge is going to last, we think, about 2 years. We're raising about $4.5 million to match the grant if it's approved by the governor. I should say that it's on his desk now. And then we'll be off and running with carbon geocapture with this really exciting technology. So ordinarily in the past, I have said House Bill 200 isn't necessary. We opposed it originally in 2020, as former Representative Lindholm pointed out. But things have changed. And I think the politics of the day as well has been discussed this morning with the federal regulations and the whipsaw that is every 4 years, sometimes every 8 years, but it feels like every 4 years with the changing administration and how we manage our business. So if we can find a way to sort of level that out and say we have clean energy using coal, it seems like the best both worlds. This technology would also apply to natural gas. So with that, I know Representative Larson has some amendments or an amendment. We've looked that over and would be supportive of that amendment, and think it would be important to continue having the ability to move this project forward with carbon geocapture at our plant outside of Gillette and just see what that future holds. And hopefully that technology bears out. It's a Wyoming company. John Pope has testified before this committee before. Unfortunately, couldn't be here this morning, but he's a Laramie guy and really invested in seeing Wyoming prosper. So with that, Jody has anything to add, I would certainly sit for questions as well.
Ms. Levin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jody Levin on behalf of Carbon Geocapture. I also apologize for my voice. It is 'tis the season, I suppose. I just want to thank Representative Knapp. I visited with him yesterday about a potential amendment to the bill to address the concerns about allowing a project to continue. So I appreciate his willingness to work with me and to Representative Larson for drafting the amendment. And again, Mr. Chairman, to you and the committee for extending time to Mr. Pope this summer to present or last summer at the July Minerals Committee meeting. But with that, I believe Mr. Bush has covered everything.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Mr. Bush, as I understand HB 200, the 2% allows you to recapture some of the cost for research and development of the process. But if you go to full implementation, then you're able to put that into, if it costs $1 billion, as it was thrown around here, that goes into your rate base at that point. But the 2% is just for the research and proving the concept. Is that correct, Mr. Bush?
Mr. Chairman, that is a great question. I think so, but I would probably defer to the commission on that to make sure that I'm good with that math. But I believe that was the original intent, was to limit the amount of money that got spent on doing the feed studies and the other things that would be necessary to see if carbon capture would work on a coal plant. And then if we if we decided to do something like the amine process or one of those bigger projects, then it would be placed on the ratepayers. Of note as well, we recently filed our report with the commission. The public requesting is 0% standard, and that was granted. So our standard for that is 0%. So we're not looking at anything like that.
And Mr. Bush, with the proposed amendment that one of the representatives has in front of us, which grandfathers those activities that you're in right now, basically, would you be okay with HB 200 going away with that grandfather clause?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I think it's the 2028 date, I think, but I would also ask for Jody's input or Ms. Levin's input on that as well. She's a little bit more knowledgeable on that, but I think, yes, eventually having the bill sunset or the statute sunset is fine.
Ms. Levin?
Mr. Chairman, I had originally visited with Representative Knapp about a sunset date of 2028. His preference was to look at instead grandfathering projects that had received approval from the commission. That is acceptable to my client as well. And with that, then repealing or eliminating the act.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Representative Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And do you have any time frame when you think you'll start proving out your method of injection and recovery of methane, coal bed methane? Just year, 2 years, 3 years?
Mr. Bush?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Riggins, I believe the timeline is within the next year. It just depends on, I think, the collection. We started collecting on the surcharge January 1st of this year. So we are collecting under that 1.43%. So I think as soon as we have approval on the matching fund side from the governor's office, I think the plan is to move forward. The wells have already been drilled outside of our power plant up there. So, and again, they're the class 2 wells. They're not the class 6.
And follow up to that, Mr. Bush, the 2% or the rate recap, that is only for customers within the state of Wyoming. You're not charging anyone outside of the state for that, right?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. And actually, it's just our customers here in Cheyenne because the project, as you may remember, we amended House Bill 200 2 years ago to remove our Black Hills Power customers in the Newcastle area because carbon capture just would have been way too expensive for them to pay for on their own. So this is just the Cheyenne customer base, which again includes all the industrial and other large customers that are here. But yes, it is just that we're not set up under like a multi-state protocol. Our Cheyenne Light Fuel and Power utility serves Cheyenne and is separate from, say, our utility in Pueblo, Colorado. We're not sharing any of those costs or anything like that.
So Mr. Bush, if there's a customer that's just across the border in Nebraska or Colorado that's on your system, you do not charge that additional surcharge to them. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I hope you get better quickly, both of you. And isolate that petri dish as much as you can. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nathan Nicholas with the Cook Law Firm here in Cheyenne, on behalf of my client, Rocky Mountain Power. Just wanted to give mostly an update on the projects where they are at and answer any questions that the committee may have. Since the passing of House Bill 200, Rocky Mountain Power has worked diligently to comply with those requirements. And as has been said before, Rocky Mountain Power is a policy taker, and the legislature and this committee are the policy makers, and Rocky Mountain Power does their best to comply with that policy. This House Bill 200 is no exception to that. They've been working hard. They've currently finished phase 2 study at they completed a carbon capture and storage studies at the Dave Johnson plant in coordination with project partners. They're also nearing a completion of phase 2 study at the Jim Bridger plant That's expected to be completed sometime early this year. These studies have allowed the company to assess site-specific technical and economic feasibility and to better understand the potential value to customers. If the legislature determines to repeal House Bill 200, Rocky Mountain Power appreciates the opportunity that the studies have provided to gather technical and economic information. We acknowledge that we currently have a carbon-friendly administration in Washington, D.C., but these studies position Rocky Mountain Power to be able to further study and understand the economics should that policy change in D.C. and we go back to where we were in previous administrations. So with that, we stand ready to answer any questions the committee may have. And
thank you, Mr. Nicholas.
implement
Any
the policy.
questions for Mr. Nicholas? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Chairman.
that. Any other testimony in the room? Libby, we have one online. Would you bring her in, please?
Maria, you're on.
Good morning, committee and Chairman. Thank you for taking this testimony.
Good.
I'm a
Good.
Rocky Mountain Power ratepayer.
Maria, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Maria Catherman, and I live between Glenrock and Douglas, and I'm a Rocky Mountain ratepayer. And the bill that you're wanting to repeal has been a worry for us because the rate increase is significant and to us. And I think that this bill will not be missed. So I hope that you will repeal it and have the Wyoming ratepayers in mind when you do so.
Thank you, Ms. Catherman. Any questions? Ms. Catherman, is this the first time you've provided testimony in front of a committee? I don't recognize you from.
No.
Okay, well, I just wanted to congratulate and give you my appreciation for weighing in. Citizens like you, that we need to hear more of that. And I appreciate you following this topic and providing this testimony.
Thank you.
All right, I see no questions. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. Anyone else online, Libby? All right, with that, we'll close testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Representative Weber, seconded by Representative Campbell. Discussion. Representative Larson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'll move my proposed amendment that grandfathers projects that have already been approved by the PSC.
Okay, that's a surprise. We haven't heard about this yet. Thank you. So seconded by Representative Lawley. Any discussion on the proposed amendments that you have before us? Representative Knapp.
Yes, I think this will solve, Mr. Chairman, I think this will solve one of the pieces that have been questioned in the past about the repeal. And I thank Representative Larson for drafting that amendment. Thank you.
Yes, I'm also grateful for Representative Larson for going to the effort to get this done so that we can resolve some of these issues. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to vote on amendment, Representative Larson's amendment to House Bill 556. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that has been successful. Thank you very much. Any other amendments? Any other discussion? Question being called. We are voting, members of the committee, we're voting on House Bill 56, carbon capture mandate repeal. Mr. Knotts, would you call the roll?
Representative Campbell.
As amended. As amended.
Representative Campbell.
Aye.
Representative Knapp.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Lawley,
Aye.
Representative Riggins,
Aye.
Representative Schmidt,
Aye.
Representative Tarver,
Aye.
Representative Weber,
Aye.
Chairman Heiner,
Aye.
9-0. This is due pass with amendments.
Thank you. Thank you, committee. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to have time to get to the last bill today. We'll carry that on and that'll be the number one bill priority. Hopefully we'll have some other bills on Friday, but that'll be the first bill that we deal with on Friday. Those that have attended preparing for that bill, I apologize that we weren't able to get to that. With that, we will adjourn.